All right, let's start with the rapid fire round. The first one is, at what age do you want to retire?
Never.
How long does it take you to get ready in the mornings?
Depends.
Most embarrassing moment of your life?
On a daily basis.
Favorite color?
Orange.
What time of day are you most inspired?
Evening.
How many hours of sleep can you survive on?
4.
The city in which the best kiss of your life happened?
New York.
Pick one, Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg.
Elon.
How do you relax?
Take a walk.
How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
Too many.
A habit of yours that you hate?
Overthinking.
The most valuable skill you've learned in life?
Creativity.
Your favorite Netflix show?
Don't watch.
One word description of your leadership style?
Future.
Ideal vacation spot for relaxation?
Greece.
Key factor for maintaining a work-life balance?
Inspiration.
All right, so that was the end of the rapid fire.
This episode is sponsored by Outgrow.co, the world's first all-in-one interactive content builder. Use Outgrow to build quizzes, calculators, tests, polls, forms, contests, and chatbots to generate leads and keep your audience engaged. Sign up for a free trial at https://outgrow.co.
So we can go on to the longer questions.
Yeah.
You can answer these with as much time and thought as you like. So as a leading tech futurist at Adobe, how do you envision the role of AI evolving in the creative industry over the next 5 years?
Yeah, it's I think what I've been calling a Promethean moment for not only the industry, but on an individual creativity level as well. Before answering that question, I would delineate the distinction between artificial intelligence and generative AI. In many ways, AI is focused on predictive and automative tasks, and generative AI is focused on the ability to generate. At Adobe, we think about it in terms of 4 or 5 horizons: generative images, generative video, generative 3D, generative audio, and possibly generative code. So in terms of the latter, with regards to generative, now anyone who has an idea has the tools that can help them get that idea out of their head to really create the idea and generate it.
And so how does Adobe plan to support creatives in adopting to these emerging AI tools and technologies?
Sure. One of the most important things, quite foundational in terms of our approach to supporting creativity, is having an ethical framework. We think of it in terms of 3 pillars. The first one being responsibility, second, accountability, and then third being transparency. In terms of responsibility, we train only on our data. And so that allows us to fully indemnify everything that gets generated. So for the end consumer, user, creator, that offers greater peace of mind with how they're creating. Secondly, in terms of accountability, we also have created a creator economy. And what we mean by that is now anyone, anywhere can contribute their artwork. And if they would like, they could have the system be trained off of their content. And so we then reward them for allowing us to train off that. And that's creating this broader ecosystem, creator economy. And then thirdly, in terms of transparency, a number of years ago, we created the Content Authenticity Initiative, comprised of hundreds of software companies, hardware companies, and media companies. And so we now have a greater end-to-end transparency capability in terms of allowing the end user to see how things were trained, how things were augmented, how content was distributed, and we're getting close to showcasing how things performed in terms of effectiveness.
And what would be your position on artists who are afraid of AI stealing their creativity or art?
I would be interested in terms of what aspects are they afraid of.
Okay, so let's talk a bit about your book, Superhuman Innovation, which was co-authored by AI. What insights did this collaboration provide about the potential and limitations of AI in the creative processes?
Looking back at my career, there's been a few instrumental moments. One of them being working with IBM Watson on a healthcare use case for doing predictive healthcare outcome analysis for orphan disease states, leveraging artificial intelligence. And that was one of the first moments where I saw firsthand the ability to compress the gap between data and creativity. And that really put the seed in my head in terms of wanting to explore it deeper. That was about 15 or so years ago. And so around 2017, kind of made the jump to write a book. And again, saw firsthand how AI can amplify creativity. So the premise was not only to write a book about AI, but actually leverage AI in writing it. And it was pre the chat GPTs and the large language models. It was based off of, not to get too technical, language transformers. So did a compilation tapestry of different technologies and APIs that really allowed me, which I firmly believe, to write a better book, but it also got me to write a faster book. I did it in about 6 to 8 months. And from what I hear, the average is roughly around 12 plus months. A number of use cases, examples to showcase. After every chapter, I would run a sentiment analysis system on it, and it would give me near real-time feedback in terms of things were too humorous or not factual enough, even so much so it was in a different writing style. And so I'm quite energized and inspired. We've now evolved from just text capabilities, but also now we can see the promise really come to life in terms of generative images and video and 3D. So it's really a Promethean moment for creativity going forward because of generative AI.
So were there any surprising outcomes or challenges during the AI collaboration process for your book?
One of the big learnings, observations is maybe we overstretched the tech at the time, but we were trying to have a humor joke-based system. You can see I still refer to the co-author, Amy, the AI system, as a true co-author. And so built a system trying to really replicate some forms of humor and jokes. And some of the earlier jokes in the book were not so funny, which are kind of ironically funny. But as the system got smarter and learned throughout the writing process, towards the end, there were some actually pretty funny jokes. So I think that's a great metaphor of how systems, machine learning can get better and better over time.
So in your role at Adobe, then, what are the most exciting developments you're currently working on in the field, not just of Gen AI, but also AR and the Metaverse?
Sure. In many ways, they're quite complementary and a natural evolution. For years, we've been talking academically about the ability to create personalized experiences. We truly now have the technologies, the platforms, what I like to call the creative operating system in place. And so a natural extension to that is to now create more immersive, personalized experiences. And we're seeing some of the early technologies really help amplify that and accelerate that in terms of, if we call it the metaverse, spatial, or immersive.
Given your extensive experience in digital marketing and creative consultancy, what do you see as the biggest challenges and opportunities for brands leveraging AI and all these other emerging technologies?
In many ways, a lot of this talk about the emerging solutions, emerging technology brings us back to the foundation of the craft of the industry in terms of marketing, advertising, and that is finding a unique insight, a story, and really express that in a creative, well-designed way. And I think that's a universal, timeless characteristic of what really resonates with end consumers, but also really propels brands forward going forward.
And how do brands then, while going forward, effectively navigate the ethical considerations and potential biases inherent in AI tech?
Yeah, it's multifaceted, everything from data security, privacy, respecting local and regional guidelines and laws, and so on. And so I think the going gold standard is really to start small, do 2 to 3 week sprints, have some metrics of learnings, and then kind of land and expand from there.
So leaving all these tough questions aside, could you tell us a bit more about what your typical day looks like at work? You wake up in the morning and then?
Sure. I'm not sure if there's a typical day, but usually get up around 6 a.m. and I try to take my daughters to school every morning. Good to hear about their upcoming day. Then hit the ground running in terms of some emails, then go into a series of internal calls and customer calls. And I think that provides me a really unique, valuable vantage point in terms of hearing real world friction points and problems, and then can help translate that into how can we build products, services, and software to address those challenges.
And how much of this time is taken up by meetings?
Quite a bit.
And what advice would you have for people looking to get into your industry?
I think from a very high level, this notion of curiosity continues to be a great starting point. What does that individual find interesting? Where do they want to problem solve? And these are play the long game. These are long days in many ways, and the hope is a long career. So you really have to love what you do. And I've always gravitated towards things that I've found fascinating, whether it be healthcare, artificial intelligence, and ultimately creativity.
So your work has been featured by numerous high-profile media outlets. What role do you think media exposure plays in advancing the public's understanding and acceptance of emerging technologies?
It's the great connector of our society. In many ways, it helps surface patterns of thinking. It helps us stay aware of topics, and I think it's only going to get bigger and better and more resonant on a personal level.
So given that, what are some common misconceptions about AI and emerging technologies that you encounter, and how do you address them?
Sure, I think there's this notion of intelligence, and with generative AI, equally, I think there's some contemplations around the role, when and where within the creative process. And what we're starting to see is really to delineate out the when and the how of using generative AI in terms of creativity. You can think of creativity in terms of a spectrum, everything from the insight gathering stage to the ideation, to the production, to the distribution and measurement. And within each of those, there's moments where Gen AI can really become an accelerator and an amplifier. Interestingly enough, in many ways, we're almost going backwards, forwards along that spectrum. There's a lot of current focus in terms of the production stage, just taking out inefficiencies in terms of creating greater scale for variance and localization and so on. And so we're slowly moving back across that spectrum over to ideation. Currently within ideation, some really exciting things happening in terms of offering up different avenues of thinking or different ways of solving, but we're also seen some great examples of how the AI system or generative AI system can understand the types of thinking that's going on and introduce different ways of thinking all the way over to the insights as well.
You're also a board member of the Association of National Advertisers and the Consumer Technology Association. What trends do you foresee shaping the future of advertising and consumer technology itself?
Sure, I've always held the belief that B2B marketing is one of the unsung, untapped sectors of the industry. In many ways, B2B leads the industry in terms of having a very defined audience. And so I think that can be used as a springboard for greater learnings, how the industry can really hone in on having very precise messaging and marketing that's resonant to each individual within their different segments. In terms of CES, CTA continues to be a yearly place to go to see the latest and greatest in terms of tech patterns emerging. Earlier this year was really blown away by some leapfrogs in terms of generative audio. And so I think that's a great example of festivals where ultimately humans are coming together to co-share ideas and have collective conversations.
What initiatives or policies do you believe are crucial for both the ANA and the CTA to prioritize in order to foster innovation while also protecting consumer interests?
Sure. In many ways, we're applying new technologies for an older reality. And I would offer continued focus on having a focus on the here and now, but also in parallel, we all have to collectively have an eye towards the future and what that future we all collectively would like.
So as someone who frequently delivers keynotes on generative AI and computational creativity, what message do you find resonates most with audiences worldwide?
Sure. I generally get the feedback that there's a sense of optimism around AI and generative AI. In the headlines, sometimes we isolate on one thing, but when we zoom out and look at the broader impact that it can have in terms of not only effectiveness, but also greater efficiency in terms of enterprise and customer behavior and benefit, the possibilities are infinite. So I continue to try to reinforce the continuous great innovation, not only happening within the tech itself, but also the outcomes that it's providing.
How do you tailor these presentations to different audiences, from industry experts to general public?
Sure. In many ways, there's a lot of similarities. I think first have to paint that big picture. I call it the North Star architecture. And that traditionally is about 2 to 3 years out, and then talk about how we reverse engineer to get there. And that, I think, is very applicable for a large global enterprise all the way down to a smaller startup. And so I think that continues to be a universal theme focus going forward. We then get into conversations around responsible AI and the need for greater privacy, bias prevention, more conversation on a public and private sector standpoint around regulation. And so that seems to be very foundational in these conversations as well. And from there, then it can deviate in terms of each opportunity, each event has a snowflake aspect to it. And so that's where it can then get tailored into the specific industry, the specific region, and so on.
So in all these speaking engagements, including with notable figures like Kim Kardashian, how do you bridge the gap between technology and mainstream culture?
Sure. In many ways, the value prop of technology is to help us become more human. And I think that's a great takeaway and quite valuable for audiences and myself to continuously to define and refine going forward.
Do you have any example of a particularly memorable or impactful speaking engagement, and what makes it stand out? Do you have any story around that?
What I love about the opportunities to go to events around the world is I get to meet great people all day, every day, and hear different perspectives, different use cases. And with that said, I also get to see commonalities, and I think there continues to be we're more alike than not, and that really energizes me to help create technologies that continue to bring us closer together.
Be positioned in this with experience in both creative strategy and also emerging technologies. How do you see AI transforming the landscape of digital marketing?
It's quite profound. I've tried to gravitate away from using the word transform to maybe a stronger word, reinvention. And so unlike technologies previously that were either allocated to, let's say, a CIO or a CTO, it is now truly a contract across not only the C-suite, but really every individual, every discipline within the enterprise. And so this is really surfacing a lot of great new opportunities, but also really bringing forth some new challenges in terms of how do you reinvent the workflow? How do you reinvent the operating model? How do you reinvent the monetization model, let alone the product in of itself? And so we're really at an interesting moment where we're addressing the here and now, but we're also reinventing that future going forward.
But is it also going to lead to the creation of a flood of marketing content everywhere?
I think even within the past 12 months, last year, a lot of the conversations specific to Gen AI were focused on efficiency gains and volume. And what we're seeing is, again, get back to the foundation is great work really resonates. So it's not so much anymore about the sheer quantity. Yes, volume and scale will always be important, but it's really about having more effective experiences, messages, stories, and I think that's going to stay true going forward as well.
Let's talk a bit about storytelling in marketing. How these technologies going to change the nature of storytelling?
I think we're turning the corner with some tech breakthroughs in terms of we're already into immersive experiences. We could replace experiences with storytelling, and I think people will continue to be really excited and drawn to the more immersive the experience or the more immersive the brand story. I think it will be quite captivating. Everything from the Vision Pro to the other headsets out there, I think we're still in the very early days, but they give an indication of how it's not only tapping into one or two senses, but it's multi-sensory going forward.
Right. So the last question for you is of a personal kind. What would you be doing in your life if not this?
I truly love it. I think by nature, I'm a creator, so I probably would be creating something. I am Chris Duffey, Strategic Development, Emerging Solutions. Catch me on the Technologist of the Month show.